out, and I might call Senator Rennick, if that's okay. Thanks, Senator Rennick.
Deputy President, and I rise in support of the charges and cost recovery bills for the Tertiary Education Quality and Standards Agency. TEQSA, as the national regulator of our universities, plays a very important role in maintaining the quality of our nation's higher education. Australia has world-class universities, thanks in no small part to the regulating work that TEQSA and TEQSA does. These bills will continue to support this work by putting in place the legislation needed to charge an annual fee to universities for the work they do. This will take the monetary burden off the taxpayer and create a self-sustaining system between universities and their regulator to keep higher education in Australia strong. The importance of having high-quality and robust universities cannot be overstated. Higher education shapes the minds of young people and prepares them to be productive and contributing members of society. Students get the opportunity to expand their minds and learn to think critically at university, which is very important to being a good citizen of the world. Education is often the difference between developed and undeveloped countries, and this is why keeping universities operating at a high standard remains a priority for this government. The Tertiary Education Quality and Standards Agency is the government's authority for doing this and ensuring continuing high standards at our universities. The Tertiary Education Quality and Standards Agency does the work of registering higher education providers, accrediting courses where self-accreditation has not been given, and regulating providers to ensure they are delivering best practice. Any new provider of higher education must first register and then renew their registration once every 7 years. Throughout that time, TEQSA conducts regular compliance and quality assessments and also collects and disseminates information relating to higher education and best practice. Because of the essential work that happens, it's important that it gets money it needs to function. At the moment, this money is coming from the taxpayer, but the purpose of these bills is to transition TEQSA's cost recovery to come from universities as the beneficiaries of their services. At the moment, only 15% of total cost is being recovered from the sector. But over the next 3 years, this will transition to 100% so that TEQSA can become a self-sustaining system. It makes sense for universities to pay for the services that they are benefiting from and which they need for their industry to remain strong. In addition, it's government policy that regulators be able to recover the full cost of what it takes to deliver their services, and so these bills will see the higher education sector come into line with this. An example of the important work being done is when they identify and improve the transparency of the admissions process of universities. There was way too much variety and confusion in application pathways, which made it difficult and confusing for potential students to apply. TEQSA was able to apply the problem by creating an implementation plan that universities adopted, which included standardising admissions information, terminology and threshold that streamlined the process. This means that potential students can now easily see the admission requirements and be able to compare universities in order to make an informed choice about where they go and whether they can get in. This is just one example of the important regulatory work that TEQSA does and why it needs adequate funding to be able to fulfil their purpose of protecting student interests and the reputation of Australian higher education. The COVID-19 pandemic has been a difficult time for the higher education sector because of the loss of—
Senator Rennick, just resume your seat, please. Senator Farrell.
Point of order. The senator is in breach of Standing Order 187. You're not permitted to read your speeches in this place.
Senator Farrell, I think we're fairly lenient on that standing order, but I do remind senators it is a standing order and would ask you to speak to your speeches. Thank you, Senator Rennick. Please continue.
That's fine. Thanks, Madam Deputy President. Listen, I don't need to read a speech to talk about education in this country and what the Labor Party did to education in 1990 with the Dawkins Plan. So you want me to go off script, Senator Farrell? I'll do that any time, because I well remember what the Hawke-Keating government did to education in this country. They have basically commoditised degrees in this country and treat our children like commodities. Treat our children like commodities. They introduced the HEX debt. They introduced the HEX debt, basically enslaving our children to debt, just like Paul Keating did when he brought in the foreign banks in this country and let the RBA off their leash and inflated house prices. And now our students, they go to university, end up with a massive HEX debt. They've got very little chance of getting jobs because everyone had to get a degree rather than stick with TAFE, and now they're in big trouble because the Button plan destroyed manufacturing. So that was the perfect combination. Let's destroy manufacturing. Let's prop up the finance industry by giving unmitigated control to the superannuation industry, letting in the foreign banks, letting in foreign debt. And what have our children got? Nothing. We've privatised all the infrastructure in this country. They've got degrees that don't get them jobs, and now they've got to give up 10% of their incomes, which I spoke about earlier today, and Paul Keating himself admitted that came out of their wages. So I don't need a lesson from you, Senator Farrell, as to how destructive your party—
Senator Rennick, I remind you not to reference other senators directly.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Deputy President. I don't need a lesson from Senator Farrell, Madam Deputy President, as to the destructive nature of what Labor has done to this country. And there isn't an industry in this country that hasn't been destroyed by the Labor Party. You know, it's interesting. They talk about casualisation and how, wages are casual. I was just reading about how under the 1983 Income Prices Accord, casualisation went from basically single digits to up to 25%, thanks to the Hawke-Keating government. And they've got a hide to come in here and talk about casualisation rates in this country. There isn't a thing that the Hawke-Keating government didn't destroy it. And a little bit that was left when the Rudd-Gillard government got in with the boat people, what a mess they made. So I'm not going to bother talking about this bill, because this bill is all about trying to get education back on track in this country.
Senator Rennick, please resume your seat. Senator Carr.
Madam Deputy President, look, we do appreciate that in a second reading debate we do range widely, but there is no relevance whatsoever in this senator's remarks to the terms of this bill. We're on the boat people, we're on various other measures which I suggest to you is not contained anywhere in the bill, and perhaps he could draw his attention back to the terms of the bill.
Thank you, Senator Carr. I have been listening carefully, and I was waiting for Senator Rennick to get back onto the bill, but it is a broad-ranging debate, and he was speaking mostly about education.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Chair. And I was actually coming back because this bill is a part of many things that we're doing in the Morrison government to get education back on track in this country, so that basically our children, when they graduate from tertiary education, whether it be through the university sector or the TAFE sector, that they can get a job. Because at the end of the day, higher education is a means to an end. It is not an end in itself. It is not about propping up academics to write research publications that basically create alarmist theories about the Great Barrier Reef and all that sort of stuff. No. It is about delivering outcomes, and that is a higher standard of living for our children, and to make sure that they can stand on their own 2 feet. Particularly, and I want to acknowledge the great work that Senator Cash has been doing in giving a 50% incentive to apprenticeship, that apprenticeship scheme. That's totally been booked out, I understand. It's totally been filled, and I think we're extending that. And it's great to see that the Morrison government is trying to get people back into apprenticeships, because we openly acknowledge we don't want to rely on too much immigration for the sake of filling jobs. So I'm glad to commend this bill to the Senate, because I know that this bill is another step that the Morrison government has been doing to clean up higher education in this country, and the mess left behind by prior Labor governments that we're still cleaning up after those horrid neoliberal years under the Hawke-Keating government that basically left our country desolate You know, a lot of this stuff we're only seeing it now, of course, but you know, it's very important that we stand up to that. So I'll just leave it at that. And Senator Farrell, anytime you want me to go off script, you just let me know, because I'm happy to talk to you and hear about this or any topic, any time, any place. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Rennick.